Hello and welcome to Broadsword Wargaming. In this video, I'm going to talk about and show you 5 things you should be doing that will help improve your painting. Hello, if you're new here, please do click that subscribe button for more videos to come, or check all the links below in the description if you want to support the channel further. This video for me is kind of a first. It's a tips and tricks type video. I want to tell you 5 things that I've learned in this past year, or 6 months even some of these, that have really helped improve my painting. These are things you can buy and things you should, and I wish I'd been using years ago, or at least for the past year, that have got my painting to a slightly better standard than it was before. I'm going to put it out there. I'm no award-winning painter. I can just give you the tips and tricks that I've learned that have helped improve me to a better standard. And what better model, considering I just did a trench board build last week or the week before, what better model to show you than on a Death Corps of Krieg soldier. I've actually got 5 here. I've got a captain and a few other models. I'm going to paint them all because some of these techniques actually is just as easy to paint 5 as it is to paint 1. So if you're looking at batch painting huge armies, these are the things you should be doing and using because it will make it so much easier and will make them so much better.
Tip number 1, use a wet palette. I'm looking at the Redgrass Everlasting wet palette. I picked this up for around £30 last year. A really good piece of kit. It has a little magnetic side tray for your paints that you can attach to it. And the instructions look quite complicated, but actually it isn't that difficult to set up. Add some water in and stick the sponge in. The sponge will soften as it absorbs the water. Then lay down the paper on top of it. People use baking paper and all other kinds of products when they're making their own, but this one comes with 50 sheets. You don't really need any more. Make sure to flatten it down, remove any creases, get it as flat as you can, otherwise it will start pooling your paint. And make sure not to get water on top of the paper, as your paints will get watered down more, and don't use metallics or washes because this will soak through to the sponge. These are the paints I'm going to be using, a grey into a light Space Wolf grey, and that is how easy it is to blend your paints. These will stay wet for ages, allowing you to paint for longer and paint smoother transitions onto your models.
As you can see, the wet palette is quite easy to set up. It seems a little bit daunting when you're reading all the instructions, but you get 50 sheets of this paper, 2 sponges, you just drop some water in, stick the sponge in, it's quite solid and then it goes all wet, but when it dries out it goes pretty solid again. So stick this in and put the parchment paper over the top. I've seen people use homemade ones, I've tried it myself, it never really worked, not as well as I wanted. This product is just really good. There are other ones as well that you can buy. I'll put some links below if you want to buy one. This way allows you to help blend your paints or keep your paints wetter for longer. For me, using dry paints, or when you put a paint, I used to use things like paper and bits of plastic or plates. The paint dries out quite quickly and it gets a bit thicker and lumpier and it starts to show on your model. It gives texture where maybe you don't want it to be. So thinner, wetter paints is always a bit better, and this is just a great way of keeping them that way so you can play with them for longer.
Tip number 2, and probably the most important one, get yourself an airbrush. This one is something I picked up offline. It cost me, I think, £40. It's not expensive. It comes with a compressor. It's very simple, voila mart, I think. You push it down and pull it back to get the air and the paint out. It has a little trap for your water as well, and that's it. For £40, what more can you get? I'm going to base my models with this as well, so you don't need to use spray cans anymore. I've just got some of the Vallejo black surface primer, added in a little bit of the airbrush thinner from Vallejo again, and you just spray this all over the model. Be gentle, be light. You can build this up in layers. There's no need to rush this and blast it all on in one go. If you've not used an airbrush, do check out some videos on it. I did a review of this very airbrush and showed you some of the basics, some of the features it had. Since I've had this, I don't know why I'd ever use a spray can again. I did 5 models here. I've done the leader, a couple other guys, and then I added another color in. So this is a white. I've done the same thing, added a thinner. I'm just now trying to sketch out the highlight and the details of the model. It looks difficult, it's not. The work is all done on its own. This is a zenithal highlight for those of you who don't understand the term. It just means as in shining from where the light would come. It really starts to let you understand the model and brings out the details. It's probably the most exciting part for me whenever painting anything because it makes me feel like I can paint like a pro, even though I can't. Keep adding up to where you want to go. I'm going to take these to a quite extreme level so you can see them better on camera. I might normally use less white on the tips and just let it flow through to a grey, but I'm going to leave this quite black and white. It's easy. That took me 5 minutes to do all those models and they look pretty good. There's the behind. You can see already the detail forming on those capes and on that leader's coat. Next is just getting the base color. So this is a gray from Vallejo, not too dark, kind of like a Space Wolf type gray. And I'm spraying this over the model, very thin coat. I'm looking to do 2 or 3 thin coats here. It'll still allow those zenithal lights and darks to show through the model at the end without covering all the detail up, but it's going to give it a very nice general coat. There you go, that's the grays on. That didn't take very long either. So good for speed painting. Next is a highlight. This is again like the zenithal spray, but more refined. I can understand at this point why you'd maybe want a better airbrush, because this one has a relatively large nozzle, I think at 3 mil, 0.3 mil. You could do more refined things with the smaller one, and this hasn't got the greatest control, but you can see me starting to build up these highlights. Can you imagine doing this with a brush? I used to do this with a brush, not to this extent and not as well as this, and it'd take me so much longer, but you can see me now applying this to the tips of capes, to where the lights might hit, to the bottoms, to the backs of legs. This works for everything, Space Marines as well, any other models you've got. And that's how they look after that. I know they look a bit black and white, but they're not. They are grey. And I'm really, really happy with the contrast I've got between dark and light on these models.
That's the basics of the airbrush. Why, oh why, did I not have one years ago? I've had this actually for about a year now. I did a review ages ago on this particular airbrush, and I've just been scared to use it. I looked at so many things online and so many different channels and so many reviews and how-to videos, and it looks so complicated. The fact is, it isn't. This is a cheap airbrush. I can understand now why I think you'd want a better airbrush further on down the line. I'm starting to get to the point now where I'm getting a little bit better and a little bit more refined, and I'd like an airbrush that I can rely on to not spit a bit or to stay cleaner better or to have a smaller nozzle, because you want to start doing more finer details. But to do this kind of thing, getting nice shades on models, it's perfect, it's easy. I could never achieve this with a paintbrush, and if I did, it would take me a long time. Do get yourself an airbrush, do try it out. It's about £40 for this setup. You need a few other bits as well, but for what you get, just play around with it. You'll mess up, making mistakes. There's no failure in failure, right? Only learning from those failures will we get better. So try it, play around with it, give it a go, and see how you get on.
Tip number 3, using contrast paints. Now, I know you've seen so many videos on these. I missed that hype myself. I didn't go through the contrast paint stage, and I've only just started to discover them. But the contrast black Templar paint is possibly Games Workshop's best paint ever. Over the zenithal highlight we've already done, this allows it to naturally highlight and shade your models. It goes really well over clothes. I'm doing the gun and the helmet and the armor here, but stick this over clothes or anything else. I've used it for my Warhammer models, and it just looks really awesome. The coverage is good. Be gentle, you can still move it around for a little while, so don't let it pool too much, but spread this around. It'll give you a nice, even finish. It's quick. It's much nicer than using a watered down Abaddon black, because that requires constant work. This itself will just settle naturally and give you a very gentle, gradual grey or whatever undercolor you've got highlight to your miniature. I can't recommend it enough, and at £4 a pot, this has become one of my new favourite paints. Non-oil, Agrax Earthshade, your time is over. I then added the rest of the details in off camera. It's just browns and metallics. It's boring.
This allowed you to get really good highlights just by painting, particularly if you're doing the whole zenithal white overspray style situation with using the airbrush. This gives you natural highlights, and it's quite soft and smooth, so really good for clothes. I've used this on some Warcry models. It looks great for trousers. It looks great underclothes for my Eldar, for my Dark Eldar, for my Imperial Guard. So get stuck in, give it a go. One pot, I know it's like £4 odd, but it's really good, and I cannot tell you how much this has helped speed up and improve my painting. I don't know if contrast paints are for everyone. I don't think I'd use everything and paint everything in contrast, particularly flat surfaces. But for clothes and different materials, it's just really good.
Tip number 4, use oil paints. It sounds crazy, it sounds complicated, it's really not. It's just like using any old acrylic paint. You just squidge it out of the tube. They're about, I think it's about £7 a tube here. Add some, I use odorless thinner here actually because it smells horrible, but you can use different products as well. Add some odorless thinner until you get the consistency of a wash. And then as you'll see, it settles itself. So a tap into a recess or on the fold of a cape and it will move around freely through the model as if it has a flow aid in it. It doesn't, it just seems to settle really well. Do this around all of the darker parts of the model. I'm showing you on this one because it's black and white and I hope it might show a little bit better. Actually, it's grey and white, but who cares? This will move around and spread into all those recesses and you can start to get a nice gradual recessed detailed model. Now onto the actual model. It's very much the same process. I'm going to put this into the recess at the back of the cape here. I'm focusing on the capes because these seem like the most exciting parts and the ways that showcase these techniques better than anything else. So stick it into all those areas, all the recesses, all the darker paints. Don't worry too much if you get it over something else because this stays on the model for ages, but you can actually just wipe it off. So I've dipped this cotton bud into the thinner and I'm very gently tapping it on and removing the excess. Don't scrub too hard because it will take the paint off. It's up to you if you varnish before you put the oils on. I didn't here because I'm trying to get this done as quick as I can, but there you can see the excess. And then when you've done that, dip the paintbrush in some thinner and you can still move it around. It'll go anywhere you want it to go. You can turn it from black to grey, and that's the kind of final finish you get after just 10 minutes of work.
And it's just a really good way to get more depth and a bit more of a blend into your model. So I'm using the capes here, obviously, primarily. And I think the fact it stays wetter for like a day and you can rub excess off and you can really start to blend it in. All you need to do is dip your brush back in, dry it off a little bit into the thinner, and you can start playing with it again. And it stays something you can move around for quite a while until you lock and seal it in.
Yes, I said I'd give you 5. Use the airbrush to weather your models. I've used it on boards and I've used it on buildings and it works just as well on these guys. It's a Death Corps of Krieg. They spent their times in the trenches, they like the mud, so catch the bottoms of that cape or the coat with the airbrush, get a darker colour and spray upwards, and you can start to get a nice gradient for around the base of the model where the mud would hit. And there's our finished model in all its glory. All that's left to do now would be to apply a matte varnish to really soften down the shine.
Finally, have fun. That's the main thing. Paint some models, paint your miniatures, because I've been putting off painting things because I always feel like I'm not good enough and I can't paint to the standard I want to paint. I see things, I'm improving a lot, but the only way we're really going to improve is by painting. I think sometimes doing less can be more and can make models look better. You can always try and strive to achieve something, and if you don't feel you're ready for that, keep practicing, keep playing. You won't get better unless you try. Painting is an art or a craft. It's not really a science. So get in, get stuck in and enjoy it, because I'm starting to really enjoy this hobby this last couple of months because I've had time to play around with painting and play around with board builds, and I hope you guys can see the enthusiasm that I have for this hobby, and I hope it can rub off on some of you and you can get stuck into those endless grey hordes of miniatures. There you have it, that's the end of the video. What do you think? For me, the setup's pretty cheap. It probably in total cost me less than 100 quid. The airbrush is what, 40? The paint palette is 30. The oils are like 20 quid. Some contrast paints are another £5. For about £100, you can set up a pretty decent way of painting your armies. Get them all done. That's my new thing now, is kind of batch painting. And I might do a few batch painting-y style videos to help everyone get on with those models. I've got 50 poxwalkers I know waiting for me at home for a project I'm going to do. I've got 2,000 points of soul drinkers. I've got 2,000 points of imperial knights. They all need doing, and I want to get them all painted. So I might do some sort of 24-hour painting videos. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. If you're already using these techniques and these skills, I hope you've learned something. If not, I hope it's been fun and enjoyable to watch, because I'm painting Death Corps of Krieg, so who doesn't love those? Yeah, add what you want, but the main thing is just have fun, get stuck in, get focused, and try these things out for yourself. I'm no painting god. I didn't do this model to the best of my ability. I just wanted to show you some of the basics and some of the techniques and some of the ways you can improve your painting. If you've enjoyed this video, please do remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the alarm bell for more videos to come. Check all the links below. All the products I've used, or as many as I can find, are there as some sort of affiliate links, so that would really help support the channel as well. Check out the links at Element Games and Grim Dice Gaming. Use the code BWG in the end and in the coupon section, and I get a small cut as well, and it helps them out. They're good friends of mine. Check out the links at Wargames Atlantic for some of the models I've been using recently as well. And of course, for those who don't want to support me that way, do check out my Patreon. There's a nice Discord going now, and I'm always there, ready on hand to answer questions and help people as much as I can. That's it. That's enough for me. I won't rabble on. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys in another video.